Okay guys, so today I am going to take you guys through the process that I go through when I modify my jerk baits. So this is the process I go through with every jerk bait that I buy. The idea is that I want those jerk baits suspending as close to horizontally as possible in the water, and I want them suspending as perfectly as possible. So this is the process I go through. I've got today, I've just got this is a little Bass Pro Shops jerk bait, just a little XPS Bass Pro Shops jerk bait that I bought the other day. We're going to give it a shot and see if we can modify it how we need to here. A few supplies that you'll want to have on hand: some split ring pliers. Of course, you'll want some extra hooks. I usually use the KVD Mustad hooks, either the round bends or the triple grip hooks, those wide gap hooks. I love those hooks, as well as you'll want some extra split rings as well. So I've got this is just kind of my little supply box here that I keep all those miscellaneous little supplies. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to get rid of the hooks that come stock on here. I pretty much replace the hooks on almost all the hard baits I buy over to the KVD Mustads. Those things are sticky sharp. They're awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these here real quick. Okay, now we've got rid of the hooks. Now on all of my hard baits, I like to actually have two split rings on there. This is a little trick I learned from a video that Brent Chapman on the Elite Series did, where he said that he likes two split rings on there because it allows those hooks to be able to twist more, so that those fish aren't able to get as much leverage, and twist those hooks out. So when you put two split rings on there, it allows a lot more free range of motion for those hooks to spin around. So I'm going to set the jerkbait up how I would like it to be set up, and we'll see how it does suspending, and we can make modifications from there. So now I'm going to go ahead and add an extra split ring to each of these, and I'm going to add some new hooks to it, those KVD Mustangs. Alright, so I've got my jerkbait modified here, where I've got two split rings on each one, and I've got some KVD hooks on here. Now these hooks are a little big. I typically like to use put hooks that are one size bigger than the ones that come stock on there, just because they've got more bite to them and they keep fish pinned on those hooks a little better. But we're going to put it in here and see what happens. Sometimes when I do that, it makes it sink like a rock, and then you got to modify from there. But let's throw it in and see what happens. As you can see, the jerk bait is down on the bottom, so we've got to make some modifications. I think what we're going to do is I'm going to back off, and I'm going to put those hooks a size smaller. So I've got a size 4 on here right now. I'm going to step it down to a size 6 hooks on there. I also forgot to mention that it's very useful to keep a towel on hand, as you're going to be getting in and out of the water quite a bit. Okay, so now we went ahead and we put size 6 hooks on here. These are size 6 round bend KVDs, so let's throw it in and see what happens this time. So it looks like it's still sinking. And as you can see, when I would drop it in, I would hold it there horizontally and drop it in. It would drop down tail first. So that means that back end is a little heavy. So So we're going to pull it out, and we're going to take off one of the split rings on the back and see what that does. Alright, I've taken one split ring off the back. We're going to put it in and see what happens. Alright, well, we're still sinking, and it still looks like it's sinking tail first, unfortunately, but there's not much more weight we can take off the back end. That's as small of a hook as I feel comfortable with, and we're down to one split ring. So anyway, we're just going to take a split ring off the middle here and see if that lightens up the overall bait. Okay, now we're down to one split ring on each hook hanger, and just the size 6 hooks. So obviously, straight out of the package, these I've never bought one of these Bass Pro Shops jerkbaits before, but wanted to give it a shot. So straight out of the package, obviously these things it's a pretty heavy bait. So hopefully, let's see if we get some suspending action this time. Unfortunately, as you can see, it still sinks. It's not what we want. So, unfortunately, what I've ended up with here is what I would consider to be not a super awesome jerkbait. You know, I've gone as light as I can and all the components on the hooks, on the split rings, you know, it's still sinking, and still sinking tail first as well. So this, what I'm going to do with this jerkbait now is I'm going to label the bottom of it. I've got a little labeling system. If you look here, this is my jerkbait box right here. We'll see how well y'all can see this. I'll set it down in front of the bin here. If you can see on the lid, I've got some stuff written up here. That's my little key. So basically, I've got abbreviations that I write on the bottom of each of my jerkbaits that tell me how that bait suspends. So for instance, and I always write down the code in two parts. So first, you know, we've got over here in this column, this one says SF, so it says slow floating. So that means, you know, if I've got a bait that rises very slowly, then I'm going to write SF, and if it rises very slowly in a nose down position, I'm going to write SFND for slow floating nose down. You know, and I may have one. So I've got over here, I've got slow floating, slow sinking, floating, sinking, and perfect. Perfect hardly ever happens. And over here we've got nose down, nose up, and horizontal. So this just shows the angle that it sits in the water. And then the first letters tell me whether it sinks or floats and how fast it does that. So for this one, I'm just going to write I'm going to write sinking nose up, because it sinks with the nose up like that. So the times that I'll want to throw this jerkbait, it's not going to be a very good wintertime jerkbait. Like I said, you want it suspending as horizontally as possible. But you know, times when you're fishing a jerkbait a lot quicker, such as in the fall, or you know, in the spring, or you know, whenever. Basically, just not in the winter. When you're fishing a jerkbait a lot faster and really looking for that reaction bite, then I'm okay with pulling this jerkbait out, because I know that perfect suspending action isn't necessarily required, and I can still catch fish on it. So. All right. So I've got my SNU for sinking nose up on there. Like I said, this will be a jerkbait that I want to fish a lot faster during certain times of the year. So now I guess you're maybe wondering what it is that I'm looking for in a jerkbait for the winter time, when I'm really trying to get it to suspend perfectly. Um, the ideal jerkbait is you're going to have it suspend nearly perfectly, and you want it to suspend with just a slight nose down position. So basically the main things that I do to modify my jerkbaits to get them to suspend is will change the hooks and mess around with the size or the style of the hook, and as well as I'll add or take away split rings. And I've gotten to the point now where, I used to, tape some little suspend strips or just teeny little pieces of suspend strips and everything on there. But now I just get it to suspend as close as possible, with the just the hooks and the split rings, because I realize that you're never going to be able to have a bait that suspends perfectly all the time, every time. The reason for that being is there's factors that are out of your control. Water temperatures change on a regular basis, obviously, and so because of that, the water density changes, and so you may have a bait that sinks or floats, when the water's really cold, and then it does the opposite when it's warm. And not only that, but you also have got to take into consideration your line. Let's say you're throwing fluorocarbon fishing line. This is something I started thinking about. At the end of a very long cast with fluorocarbon, because of the fact that it sinks, you've got a lot of weight from all of that line out there that's pulling that bait down and causing it to sink slowly. Now, if you're throwing monofilament fishing line, monofilament floats, and so it's the opposite. You've got all that monofilament out there, and it's going to raise up a little bit. And so not only that, but halfway through your cast, things may change a little bit, and you've got less line out there, with fluorocarbon, so it's not as heavy. So anyways, you're never going to have a bait that suspends perfectly throughout the entire duration of the cast at all different times of the year. It's just not going to happen. So I've just kind of had to accept that, and I just get my bait to suspend as close as possible with just modifying the hooks and the split rings. And then depending on, if it's a slow sinking bait, if it sinks very slowly, then I'll throw it on monofilament fishing line. So then it kind of combats that. And since monofilament floats and my bait's sinking a little bit, the idea is that it kind of evens out a little bit, or vice versa. If I've got a bait that floats very slowly, I'll throw it on fluorocarbon fishing line. So then it kind of brings that bait down a little bit and helps it suspend a little bit and counteracts that. So anyway, that's what I do. Hopefully this helps, and since I've started doing this with all my jerkbaits, it's certainly helped me catch a lot more fish on jerkbaits. Now, if you found this video to be helpful, go ahead and click the subscribe link down there so you can subscribe to my channel and see all the other great fishing tips that I've got for you. As well as you'll see up in the corner somewhere here, you'll see a little circle with an I or something like that that has the little letter I in it, that has some suggested videos for you to watch as well. So check some of those out, and hopefully they all help you catch some more fish. That's all I've got for y'all today. So remember, you're just only one cast away from totally making your day. Good luck out there.